Good day, everyone. This is John here from 3D Create Tutorials, and welcome to my channel. So in this tutorial, we're going to be creating this fun hand, and this is from Blender to plasticity to create these really cool forms and how to use poly splines while we're doing it. So let's get going. And basically in this tutorial, I'll be using a character that I got down from actual Real Illusion, which is a free asset they have provided on their site. I'll also provide a link to that, as well as just the hand itself after I cut it up and start modifying it, as on either my Gumroad or actually on my Patreon possibly. So anyway, I'll have links down below. So let's get started. So first of all, when I'm actually starting to create a robotic character, I will come out and start with basically, the character itself, and I'll make a copy of it because again, I don't want to have any issues with something and have to go back. So it's always good to make a copy of things, and I'll start the process now. So basically I want to take the character and select it. And I'm using Blender 5.11, something like that. Anyway, you could pretty much go back quite a bit and still continue to make this character. It's basically an OBJ that's brought in and kind of modified. And I brought it in with a T-pose. Again, it's a simple character to get, but again, I'll provide it on the links below. So we're going to take the character and basically make a copy of this. So first of all, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to create a new collection. And in here, I'll call this build character or something like that, so I know what it is. Just kind of make sure I have references here. So once I go in here, once it's selected, I can right click and now I can paste it. I could take this one off now and hide it. And you see that we still have a character here, which is this one. Okay, real simply, we're going to go back in and just kind of modify this real quickly. Now, again, this is going to be a very quick tutorial. It won't be too long because I don't want to go into too many things, but I just want to make it look some, ideas for everybody to follow along and try to get some other ideas as well as to create things and just to have fun with it. So we're going to first go into edit mode here and basically go in. Now, we always have like an area where we have defined polygons where it starts going from a certain amount of polys that are around it all the way around the object. And they start coming down to a point where they start expanding out to like hands and limbs and things like that. So I always try to go in and connect like the one right before this, because this is right where your wrist will be. And I'm going to simply select the polygons here and select right down the middle here with the Alt key. This way I can kind of cut this, and we could do a delete and then delete faces. And again, the reason I'm doing that is because we'll add joints later on for something like this, and it'd just be that much easier to reconnect things. Now, keep in mind that, this is going to be this is very high polygon, and we got to do some modifications. In this tutorial, we'll be going over how to use poly splines, as well as how to add stuff to the model in plasticity. So it's a Blender / plasticity tutorial. So we got, again, that same type of effect. We got more polygons being added here. So I'm going to go back right about here. So it's like one between. And I'm going to do the same thing with the hand. I'm going to go here and kind of just get this in position here. So again, we're going to kind of just zoom in a little bit here. And you see there's like a section here with the fingers, and there's like different areas. I don't want to get this area at all. I want to get like right about here, because this is where the joint kind of cuts away from the other part. So again, Alt key, Shift Alt. I'm going to have to go back and do the rest again, I can tell. So it's Shift Alt. And here, I'm going to go about right here, Shift Alt. All right. And back to the thumb, again, like we just did. And we're going to go right here, Shift Alt. Okay. So you got all those selected. Let's delete key and hit faces. Now, a few things that, I would recommend is having, you can select this whole thing now and select all this and just kind of get rid of it for now. Because again, we have a backup. So all we're doing is working on the hand. So once I select those, we can go to select mode, linked, select linked. And now we can just delete those things, right? So delete faces, and that's all gone. So all we got is the hand. I'm going to keep it where it is to modify it. Now, the work with poly splines is really difficult to work if you have too many points. And what that means is that It's like taking this out and bringing it in and putting it in a sub D and then modifying it within plasticity. And the more detail you have, the more lines that you're going to have to deal with. So I personally like to kind of, bring this down. And, the objective there is to kind of make it so it's not as heavy. So what I normally do is I take the hand and I'll modify it. So for instance, if you select this, and if you go into selection mode here, you could also do Control plus L. Now, most of my keys are down here just for awareness. You see that you have over like almost 2,000 polygons here, which is, that's pretty massive. And each limb has, Control L. We're just going to continue to do it with this. So it's easier to, modify or select things. So when you have this is like almost 1,000. And each finger is even, the same thing. So Control L. We'll go through this real quick. Control L. Again, 960, 960. They're all 960. So you got 4 limbs, 5 limbs times 960. It's like 5,400, polygons. And it just becomes very heavy. So to reduce this whole thing, it's easy to kind of just go and modify things. The other thing that we have an opportunity here is kind of, cleaning this up. I'm going to show you one example of that because I don't want to go too far into it. And you guys can do it on your own, but I'll do one finger as well as the main hand to get an understanding of, the process. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with the hand. So we're going to actually go in here, select all these, select this one, and we're going to select linked. And we're going to make this real simple. Once I select it, I'm going to actually separate them out. Now these will be, out of the way, and we can now select them and basically hide it. It's kind of like its own entity. And now I have the hand itself. I could focus on this. So again, this is kind of like, polygons that are just flat. And if you go in here, you can see, what it looks like with the faces oriented. It's red inside, which is the way it should be, not outside. So keep that in mind when you build stuff. And if it's red, you got to flip the actual normals. So keep that also in mind. So say if it's the wrong way, you go to edit, you can go to mesh, normals, and then flip it. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So what do we do to get this cleaned up? There's a couple things. I personally would suggest getting quad remesher. I know it's expensive, but it's the most helpful polygon rebuilder, and it does a great job in reducing your polys and keeping the forms and all that good stuff. I recommend it. I'm going to show you another option to get around this, of course, but it's not going to be as clean, and it will never be to that same par. And we can select this right here. We have the remesh section right here. We have this selected. So what I would suggest is that we're going to make sure that we select the quad, and we're going to kind of take this whole thing and remesh it. The problem is it's not going to do anything because I have nothing selected. So let's go ahead and go back. It also needs to be in object mode. So if it's not in object mode, you can't do anything. So that's why you got to kind of select the whole thing. And it's real simple to use. Use quad remesher. And if you see this here, you can kind of bring this down. Let's say you want to make this like 500 polys, right? And you'll go in and start adjusting the whole thing. And we want to preserve the attribute, preserve mesh boundaries. So you'll try to keep the mesh boundaries here. If you don't select these couple of things, it might not work very well. I'm going to select all these, and we could try to focus on this now to 500, and then we hit the remesh, right? So it's gone in and it's created the mesh. It has, created and saved some of this detail. As you see, we got the hands, and we got some kind of, thing going on here, which is not very nice. However, if we now go into this, we can see what we got. So think of it this way. This would come over there just like this in this quad mode, system here. And if you go here to add, we can now generate a sub D surface. This will give us an idea of what this will look like when it goes in. So you definitely have to repair a few things, For instance, this is not connected right. And yeah, that's a little bit not right. So a couple things you'd have to redo. So in all reality, I would most likely just go back. I would also do a shade smooth on this, so you got a more general idea what this will look like. So it's a smooth form. And again, there's some issues here, here, and here. So I personally feel that this is not enough polygons to support this, and I would go back and undo it. So let's go ahead and redo this or take this off. And we can just go to, now what it does too, just keep in mind, you'll take the body and make it into that form. And if you take this off and you take this on, there's no backup, right? In Quad Remesher, it actually does a backup for you. So it's really nice. So you don't have to always go back. I'm going to go ahead and undo a couple times to get back to where it was prior. See, there it is. And again, let's do this again. So you got to do a lot of tests and runs and keep going with it until you get something that you like. So now the other suggestion I would have is to, to close these things. It might be a good idea to do that, because that way you kind of have, the form kind of already figured out for you, or not. I mean, we could keep it open. So let's go ahead and do this again. So we're going to do quad, and we're going to go quadraflow again. And this time we're going to go with, let's do about 800 and see if that gives us, the amount of stuff that we need. And let's go ahead and remesh again. One good thing is it is very quick. And just think of it this way, you're going to go in anyway and fix all of those edges here. You're going to take these off anyway. So we can go into now edit mode. We can select these things. Because it automatically put them here for us, doesn't mean that we want them. It's just there. So let's go and do these. They did like 4, basically, sections per each. I'll zoom in a little bit more. This was 5. This did not do very well either. So again, you can just select these and delete them and see what we got now. So this is a little bit wrong here. See how this is kind of like really pushed out? And it just didn't know how to handle that, So there's some issues there. Like I said, I personally, feel that it's much easier to use the other program. However, if you don't have that, I'm showing you kind of how to work around this. So I would go ahead and select the point here. Just get this little point here and just do a G key and kind of move this over. As you see now, these are kind of connected, so it didn't do too good of a job on this. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a couple times. Sometimes you need to help this thing, figure out what it needs to do. So what can we do to make this a little bit better? Well, because of, this shortness here is causing it to do that, we can simply go in and kind of just modify this. So let's go ahead and edit just to get around this. We could, take this edge right here. I'm just going to do something like this. And on the top view here, because it's on the top, I could extrude this out. And you see that this is right here. The reason why this is having problems is because it's one less section. And these all have one extra section. So I messed up by not doing this properly. So we can extrude this out. This is what's causing this issue. And we can do E key, and we can just move this out like this, right? And I could take these points now that are selected here. Let's go to point mode. And we can kind of use the scale. And we can go right on the, the Y. And we can just kind of bring this in just to get it nice and flat, right? And we could do that with all these if we wanted to, just so it's a little bit more maintained. So here, again, scale, and we'll do this on the Y. All right, thank you for joining me for part 1 of this series. And if you'd like to continue to watch this stuff, just subscribe and thumbs up would be great. Thank you for joining me. Take care.